Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nasta Prayesha Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamas Loki Bhaktir Bhavati Naistuki. So we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and today is verse number 23 of the 5th canto, 8th chapter. Here goes the verse. Kimva Hare Acharitam tapas vinyanya Yadiyam avani savinaya Krishna Saratanaya Tanutara Subhaga Shivatamakara Karapada Panktibir Dravina Vidura Turasya Kripanasya Mama Dravina Padavim Suchayanti Atmanam Cha Sarvata Kritakatukum Kautukam Vijanam Svarga Pavarga Kamanam Diva Jachanam Karuti. Synonyms. Kimva, what? Hare, oh. Acharitam, practice. Tapa, penance. Tapasvinya, by the most fortunate. Anaya, this planet Earth. Yat, since. Yam, this. Avani, earth. Savinaya, very mild and well behaved. Krishna Saratanaya, of a calf of a black deer. Tanutara, small. Subhaga, beautiful. Shivatama, most auspicious. Akara, soft. Kura, of the hooves. Pada Panktibi, by the series of the marks. Ravina Vidura Aturasya, who is very aggrieved because of loss of wealth. Kripanasya, a most unhappy creature. Mama, for me. Ravina Paravim, the way to achieve that wealth. Suchayanti, indicating Atmanam, her own personal body. Cha, and Sarvata, on all sides. Krita Kautukam, ornamented. Vijanam, of a brahmanas. Swarga Apavarga Kamanam, who are desirous of achieving heavenly planets or liberation. Deva Yajanam, a place of sacrifice to the demigods. Karoti, it makes. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. After speaking like a madman in this way, Maharaj Bharata got up and went outside. Seeing the footprints of the deer on the ground, he praised the footprints out of love, saying, "O unfortunate Bharata, your austerities and penances are very insignificant compared to the penance and austerity undergone by this earth planet. Due to the earth's severe penances, the footprints of this deer, which are small, beautiful, and most auspicious and soft, are imprinted on the surface of this fortunate planet. This series of footprints show a person like me, one bereaved due to loss of a deer, how the animal has passed through the forest and how I can regain my lost wealth. By these footprints, this land has become a proper place for brahmanas who desire heavenly planets for or liberation to execute sacrifices to the demigods." It is said that when a person becomes overly involved in loving affairs, he forgets himself as well as others, and he forgets how to act and how to speak. It is said that once, when a man's son was blind since birth, the father, out of staunch affection for the child, named him Padmalochana, or lotus-eyed. This is a situation arising from blind love. Bharata Maharaj gradually fell into this condition due to his material love for the deer. It is said in the Smriti Shastra, Yasmin Deshe Mriga Krishnas Tasmin dharman nibodhatha. That tract of land wherein the footprints of a black deer can be seen is to be understood as a suitable place to execute religious rituals. So let's collectively say Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksuru Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Kam Karuti Vachalam Pangum Langayati Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam Paramananda Maramam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanavyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So the madness continues as Maharaj Bharata lost all sense of the core. He can't think of anything but the deer at this point. So he already decided that his meditation was fake. The process no longer interests him, as he's just basically so absorbed. This so-called love is so intense and so just took away his consciousness. And now he became a madman. Now he just can't talk about anything else. We see some people like that, that they are enamored. A man or a woman or an animal. I've seen people talking about their pets as if they were Pulitzer Prize winners. They're mad. They just attribute qualities to animals, and they forget about themselves. They forget about others. Just like being in love. When someone is in love in the material world, they just lose all sense of time and decency. They would do anything out of love. Crimes of passion, they're so common and dangerous that even the police want to intervene when there is a domestic dispute, because there is this underlying attachment, even though husband and wife, or boyfriend and girlfriend, or boyfriend and boyfriend, or girlfriend and girlfriend, or whomever it is, they may be fighting with each other, that to tearing themselves to pieces. But if the police or anybody wants to intervene, the attack will be focused on that person. That's because of attachment. It's just madness. So here, Maharaj Bharata is going through the same motions, that he lost the deer, and the deer is just a dumb animal. The deer are, they're nice. They're very beautiful animal to look at, but they're dominated by fear and hunger, like every other animal. All they know is like how to pay attention with the big ears, and if some enemy may be nearby, everybody's out to get them. That's what they think, and they run. So fear and hunger completely dominates them. So if we meet a person with these characteristics, that they are completely controlled by fear and hunger, probably it's not a good candidate to make any sort of friendship with, because it's no matter how cute that person may be, it's just a bad person to associate with. And here, Maharaj Bharata, most exalted devotee, who is in the stage of Baba, like right next to prema. And all of a sudden, due to affection and attraction, he becomes enamored of a dumb animal, which is attracted or completely controlled by the lower modes and is only responding to fear and hunger. And of course, there is some maternal or paternal affection there because Bharata Maharaj adopted the deer. He never knew its mother. So Maharaj Bharata became that surrogate relative. So this affection was there, but again, this is very based in the modes of nature. So let's open up the forum for comments or questions or anything that you guys have will be welcome. Anyone?
I guess I'll try to contribute something.
Okay.
There's a Gauri Krishna Prabhu. He probably had something wonderful.
Okay. Go ahead, Agari Prabhu.
Hello, Prabhu. Thank you for that illustration of, it's actually if the deer was in the body of a human with those kinds of characteristics, it wouldn't be desirable. So just because it's a deer doesn't actually make it any more desirable. It's the actual characteristics that we should be mindful of. My question is, in Madhurika Damani, in the 3rd chapter, it speaks about different degradations of purification. So it says like there's either limited purification or partial, and then there's almost complete, and then there's complete, and then there's absolute. And then there's a description on like just different examples of what that looks like. So for example, with almost complete purification, I asked this question to my Guru Maharaj, and he said with bhava, it's like almost, one has been purified almost, but it's not like complete. And then with absolute purification, or there's complete purifications when you reach the stage of prema, and then absolute is when you attain the association of the Lord. So there's no question of ever going back. So in your understanding of Maharaj Bharat, having read Bhagavatam over so many decades of practicing devotional service, having seen devotees at various stages of purification, what is your verdict on what was it that he needed to actually be purified of, or what is the small trace amount of anartha in his heart that caused them to be plunged into this material affection for a deer?
I will make a small comment, and I want to defer to my senior Prabhu Taraka to complete, round up, or correct whatever I have to say. What I've seen is it's like gold. When gold is mixed with other metals, you can submit it to very high temperatures, and it will actually burn away everything else. But if the temperature is not correct, if the temperature is below the mark, then the purification won't take place. There will be some foreign elements into that gold. It won't be pure. So I've seen that in the same way, some devotees, they cultivate this type of advancement, which takes them very high. They actually develop very noble qualities, and they become magnanimous and generous, and et cetera, but they also cultivate, they are not very good gardeners, in the sense that they leave some weeds to grow because they are too subtle. They can't get them. That's when the association of devotees becomes crucial, because other people, other devotees, they may not be able to see the same problems in themselves, but they certainly can see it in others. This is a characteristics of devotees. They can see through stuff, probably not in their own heart, but they can see it in others. So these devotees, and then again, this is my experience, they stop associating with devotees. They only associate with people who are below their level, and they, just with the pretext of giving mercy. So there are some weeds that are growing in their own heart, maybe fame, recognition, worship, the subtle association of the opposite sex. Their chanting declines, or they stop reading, or they incorporate mundane literature or other things into their lives, or they, because they're so advanced, they think, everything I do is for Krishna, so they don't offer the food anymore. All these things are weeds that eventually choke up. So you can see someone is very advanced, and all of a sudden, oh, where is such and such? I don't know. I haven't seen him for a week. And then, they're gone. So it seems like seems like one has to be very careful. I think that's a lesson to be taken, that even if one sees one's own reflection somewhat objectively and detached, in a detached manner, still there are things that one may not be able to perceive. So we have to depend on the mercy of others, and the mercy may come in different ways, and to be criticized, to be chastised is not sought after by anybody, because it's painful. It's painful, but it's like surgery. If you have a tumor, maybe painful, but it's more painful to let the tumor grow and take your life away. So I see that most, and I've seen a lot, most of the time, what we see is like they stop associating with devotees who can actually point out what they should be working on. They become enamored of themselves or their position. There are many things that are alluring and take them away from objectively seeing that we're all very tiny, insignificant, and we depend on the mercy of Krishna and the mercy of others. Okay, I'll pass it on to Taraka Prabhu. I'm sure you have something to say about this.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So the question was, what was the specific flaw in Bharata Maharaj? How what was the subtle imperfection that led to his downfall? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So Maharaj Bharata, in that particular age, the process for self-realization was meditation. And what is required of that process, Krishna describes a little bit of this in Bhagavad Gita, and it's described elsewhere in the Shastra. It's a very, very rigid program of controlling the mind and the senses. Bharata Maharaj deviated early on by getting himself involved with this deer. It was something that he simply should not have done. And from that point forward, it's like having a blowout at 90 miles an hour. There's just a debris field left in the wake. So one thing led to another, and he just all of his advancement was lost, and he became completely infatuated with this deer, spoiling his spiritual practice and dooming him to accept another birth, an animal birth, no less. And this is one of the specific shortcomings of that process of yoga, that unless everything is executed very precisely, the results can be catastrophic, and whatever you have done previously is simply lost. It's not held over. Whereas the process of bhakti, there is no loss. Even there is a fall down, the progress that was made is retained, and at some point you will get the opportunity to pick up where you left off. So it's superior in that regard, but it's not appropriate for every age. In various ages, different processes of yoga are more easily executed and are prescribed for those particular periods in time. Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. It's a difficult time for the practice, actually an impossible time for the practice of any of these systems of yoga. But it comes with a special blessing. A concession is made for the people of Kali Yuga that simply by hearing and chanting what was achieved in other ages by meditation or by sacrifices, all can be achieved easily just by hearing and chanting the holy name. So it's actually it's advantageous. It's actually a more advantageous situation than in other ages. It's more auspicious in that way. Sarvatma Prabhu was speaking about some of the pitfalls for devotees. In my experience, I think pretty much I can say that in every instance that I have witnessed a devotee falling away from Krishna consciousness, and usually when these things happen, it's only temporary. My experience is that they always come back at some point or other. Sometimes they don't come back until the very end of their life. I've seen a number of god siblings who fell away, and at the very end of their life, they again became very serious about Krishna consciousness, because their understanding of their predicament in material life does not leave them, and at some point or other they understand, I have to do this before it's too late, and so they make an effort to save themselves. I've seen that many times. But the specific pattern of fall down, as I've seen it pretty consistently, is that a devotee commits offenses of one sort or another. There are seva aparads, offenses committed in the course of rendering service. There's Vaishnava aparad, which is much more serious. And of all the types of Vaishnava aparad, there's no offense more serious than Gaurava aparad, which is offense of the foremost of the Vaishnavas, the spiritual master. There's many different subcategories and all different kinds of permutations of these offenses. But when devotees are lax about those offenses, that, in my experience, is how they get into trouble. First, by committing offense, the effect of committing offense is that you lose your taste. The Krishna's mercy is withdrawn to one extent or another, maybe a little, maybe a lot, depending upon the gravity of the offense. And everything depends upon that higher taste. The mercy is the higher taste that we get from prasad, from kirtan, from associating with other devotees in all different kinds of ways. We get a superior taste that enables us to rise above the mundane tastes of material life, those tastes that arise from indulging our senses. So when that higher taste is lost, then there's no choice but to take shelter of the mind and the senses, and then one thing leads to another. So it can begin in a simple way, a subtle way, and sometimes imperceptibly. The devotee may not even realize what they've done. But my observation is that it usually there is always some offense that underlies any kind of a fall down. In the absence of that, the mercy that is showered on a devotee is very great, and it easily overcomes all kinds of obstacles, all kinds of allurements. Maya doesn't have much of an opportunity to get her foot in the door with devotees, because the process of Krishna consciousness is it's wonderful, it's extraordinary. It covers all of the bases so nicely. It's very easy to progress rapidly to great heights, and without threat of fall down. Progress tends to be steady and solid. Quickly, a devotee reaches a plateau of transcendence, a situation beyond the senses. They're easily able to control their senses, provided they don't make that mistake of committing offense. For any ordinary individual to refrain from, for example, the illicit sex of one form or another is pretty much impossible. Devotees can refrain from the 4 pillars of sinful life effortlessly once, and very quickly. Within a few months of hearing and chanting, they will acquire sufficient strength and determination to be able to easily abstain from sinful activity and sustain that platform of consciousness and sense control from that point forward without difficulty. They may go through some ups and downs, but this is an extraordinary thing. To be able to control the senses to that extent is remarkable. It's miraculous, really. It's no ordinary thing. It's not just simply that one makes the choice, that one decides, I'm not going to do this or that, and then they follow through with that plan. It requires necessarily a substantial amount of special mercy to be able to do that, and that comes relatively easily. but offenses will spoil that. So devotee has to understand what constitutes offense. That Srila Prabhupada speaks about the various types of offenses in many different places throughout his books. And that's true of pretty much all the subject matters that he treats. The books are written in such a way that topics tend to jump around. They may follow a logical flow, but everything that Srila Prabhupada said on a particular subject matter, you don't necessarily find all together in one place. So it requires a lot of study to imbibe all of what Srila Prabhupada had to say on a given subject matter. You'll find some information here and a bunch more someplace else. It's spread around, so you have to do a lot of study. But that's an essential part of the process to understand the nature of offense, different types of offenses, and to apply yourself, to avoiding those offenses. Part of the process of avoiding the offenses, it's kind of a catch-22 that by committing offense, you lose your higher taste, and but you lose your higher taste, and because of losing your higher taste, then you commit more offenses. You lose the strength necessary to refrain from committing offenses. And so in order to break out of that sort of a trap, the only solution is, because you can't do it yourself, once you are bound by the modes of material nature, you're unable to extricate yourself. You require the special mercy of an elevated Vaishnava who is not himself bound up in that network. Such a devotee can release you from that bondage. And so we're very much dependent upon the grace and mercy of our spiritual master and other exalted Vaishnavas. They can help us when we get into trouble. Otherwise, you can struggle on your own for months and years, and you can go through your entire life trying to dig your way out of a hole that you've fallen into and never succeed. It's important to understand that you require the mercy of an elevated Vaishnava. And when you get that mercy, it's very important to honor it and not take it lightly or for granted. Don't make the mistake twice, or you become even more offensive. You may fall down once, and then your spiritual master may pick you up and dust you off and set you on track again. Don't do the same thing again and make a mockery of the Guru's mercy. So this is one of the benefits of the process of bhakti. We have the opportunity to lean on others for spiritual support in the process of Ashtanga yoga. Ashtanga yoga is practiced alone. You go to a remote place and you remain alone and disengage your mind and senses from external objects and try to concentrate your mind somehow or other on Paramatma. It's a very difficult thing to do. We have so many advantages in the process of bhakti. Sarvatma Prabhu talked about the importance of the association of devotees, and that's a hugely important factor. It's a tremendous source of of strength and support and encouragement. From that, we get renewed incentive when maybe our own determination is flagging, and because we're social animals, we respond in a particular way to the association of others, and therefore regulation of that association is important. We don't want to take the association of just anyone, because human beings are kind of chameleons, and that they will take on the characteristics of whatever they associate with. So if you want to advance in Krishna consciousness, you associate with those who are advanced in Krishna consciousness, and you avoid the association of those who are not. You give your association to those who are less advanced, and you take the association of those who are more advanced. It's an extremely powerful process. It's a tremendous advantage, and it makes progress very easy, provided you don't commit offense. So always we have to avoid offenses. We have to know what they are, and make a conscious endeavor to avoid them. I am still regularly struggling with a tendency to commit various sorts of offenses. I recently approached Hridayananda Maharaj to beg his forgiveness, because for a period of time I was kind of an outspoken critic of some of his ideas, and I felt that I was offensive in doing so. It's not my place to make such judgments. I am junior to him. He's an extraordinary personality, incredibly accomplished. He has an unbelievably glorious history of tremendous service to Srila Prabhupada and the Sampradaya. Is immensely qualified. Who the hell am I? Insignificant nobody. But I think, I know better than everyone. So there's lots of ways to commit offenses. I rationalize that, well, I have a duty and an obligation to protect the purity of the Sampradaya, I have to protect Srila Prabhupada's will and see that his interest is served, and I have to ensure that we don't deviate in some way. And I've seen so many instances of even advanced godbrothers deviating and falling down. We've had so many problems, but there's lots of ways to rationalize. But Srila Prabhupada had zero tolerance for juniors making judgments about seniors. He wouldn't tolerate it for a moment. He would act like fire as soon as, and sometimes even the judgments were justified. There are many instances of senior disciples of Srila Prabhupada who got into trouble in one way or another. They were deviating somehow or other. They committed some offense, and so they had various types of fall downs, and so problems would arise, and devotees would approach Srila Prabhupada and try to point out, we're having a problem with this particular leader. He is, he's doing this or that nonsense. And Srila Prabhupada would immediately blast that devotee. And I mean, if I don't know, I guess, probably most everyone in assembly has not had direct experience of Srila Prabhupada's chastisements, the kind of energy that he would manifest. But I'll tell you that it was absolutely terrifying when Srila Prabhupada heavied you out. He did what was necessary for your purification, and he did it with extraordinary expertise. He was an expert surgeon, but the process of purification was sometimes terrifying. He would reduce grown men to a blithering mass of quivering tears. It was terrifying. So
Prabhu?
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to open the forum, meaning give a chance to other devotees to express their ideas, and we have gone quite lengthy. So do you mind to wrap it up, or I have a couple questions, and I would like other devotees to ruminate on them and answer them, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Everything you said was very useful. It's just that we have time constraints. One thought I had was that the fact you mentioned, the first thing you opened up was that saying that Maharaj Bharata shouldn't have been getting involved with the deer. So I think that this is one of the things that made us very sympathetic towards his situation, Maharaj Bharata. He actually was so kind that he took care of a innocent deer. So here Yasudev says, what about affection for Krishna's cows? So I wonder, should Maharaj Bharata just ignore the deer and let him die? Because it was obviously had no chance to survive. So, and how do we dovetail this propensity to have affection for animals and see them as cute and pets and so on? Who's raising their hand? Agari Prabhu, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't agree with the idea that taking care of an animal and then following the regulative principles of devotional service is mutually exclusive. Just as like taking care of a child, whom you've brought through Bhagavatam Samskar, and still honoring your vows that you made to a spiritual master. I think both can be done. It's just a question of doing it right. There's like a way, So for example, like these cows, that we're seeing on the screen, it could be argued that they have the same characteristics as the deer that are dominated by fear, and they are only concerned for their eating. However, we should, and so therefore the association is undesirable. So one could make that argument. But the thing is that we are doing it using regulative principles of care. So they have a goshala, they have a timetable, we show them duty at a certain time of the day, we still chant our rounds, So similarly, even a child as well, expert parenting, in the beginning it's difficult, but you put the kid on a timetable so that you're able to still continue with your other ideas.
But then
affection can.
That brings another problem, because when mothers have children, devotee mothers, their sadhana suffers. Their chanting goes down to little or nothing. So seems like it is a deterrent. It is harmful to have pets or to have children, because the sadhana suffers. So how do you fix that?
Well, in the beginning, with any change, there's a sacrifice that's made. So, for example, with us as well, coming to Gita Nagri, we changed occupations. So we are sitting behind the desk and now milking cows, cleaning cow poop. So sadhana suffered because the body wasn't actually conditioned for that service. So just like even with parenting, the body initially isn't so expert at like caring for the child. But I've heard from my mother and aunts, etc., it just gets easier with more children. So, on the second, third, fourth one, you pretty much have a routine. It's not so difficult. The first one is extremely excruciating. You lose a lot of sleep, etc. But it can be done. It's not impossible, and it's been going on for thousands of years.
Okay. Yashodev Prabhu, do you want to unmute yourself? Seems like you put a couple of comments and would like to hear the rest of it.
I'm just agreeing with all of you, Prabhus, drinking up the nectar. Thanks. Yeah, such a good point, Agari Krishna, that it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. And we see in the case of Bharata that he excluded his sadhana, his bhakti. That's obviously not necessary to feel affection for someone and then exclude something else. But for so many reasons, that's the case with Bharata.
But in the case of having a child, I think it's a little different. That a little deer nudging you when you are having your meditation. This is screaming children that they will reduce the sleep to nothing. Like you cannot sleep for more than an hour or 2 hours a night and be constantly harassed, and you cannot tell the child, yeah, I know you're hungry right now, but I haven't finished my rounds, so just please control your senses, Junior. And
Yeah.
You're already a year old, so you should be doing better than this.
You want my opinion on that?
Oh, please, you have children. You have young children.
Holiness Devamrita Swami would say, we always find time for the things that we want to do. So if there's a strong desire to do sadhana, you find time, even when you have a newborn. And yeah, for the first few weeks, you have to feed them like every 2 hours, which means you don't sleep. And then it gradually gets easier. But, if we really want to, we always find the time for it. You find time for spacing out, if that's what you want to do. Or if you find time for sadhana, if that's what you want. So I agree with Agari Krishna. It's not really a matter of, is it this lifestyle? Because none of us has a lifestyle where we have to do something 24 hours a day. So we have plenty of time for Krishna.
But in the case of Bharata Maharaj, should he just would have abandoned that? The problem was fixed just by not taking care of the deer, right? Because he was fine.
That's a really interesting question, which I wonder about also. I guess at some point it was mentioned that he felt some obligation because he was a king taking care of people for so long. It was an inclination of his to take care of the deer.
He retired from that life.
Right. But really, yeah, as a renunciate, he didn't really have that obligation anymore, but still he felt it, maybe as a result of some conditioning. It seems like Agari Krishna is saying you should be able to take care of a deer, but also not be overly attached and compromise your sadhana. It seems like that's something that he could have done if he weren't so infatuated.
But then several chapters of the Bhagavatam would not have been relevant to us.
But then we'd miss out on such a great story.
I would say that for Bharata Maharaj practicing what was probably Ashtanga yoga, it's very different than what we do in bhakti. It is possible to do these things, and you actually can balance different types of activities and have it all work together. Not true with Ashtanga yoga. It's a very different thing. Ashtanga yoga, you have to withdraw your mind and senses from every other object and fix them, simply on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything else has to stop everything else. Bhakti is not like that. Bhakti, we utilize everything in devotional service. It's a very different approach. So
that is true. I while I'm chanting my rounds, I can see out the window deer every day, pretty much. I just keep chanting. So it is possible to practice even a rudimentary form of bhakti yoga while while the deer are still, outside our door.
But did you see any baby deer? Because they're especially cute.
I do. Actually, they are families. There's all the way from it big honcho to the small one lagging behind. Yes, very small, very cute. Still, I gotta finish my rounds. There's no question of losing my mind over a deer. But again, the deer it's not dependent on me. Even if I go out the door, they're gonna run away. They want nothing to do with me. And Bharata Maharaja's case, the deer was totally dependent on his care. Yes, Gaur Prabhu. You need to unmute yourself.
Drumagora. Oh,
Haribol, Prabhu.
Yes.
Thank you for your class. I don't remember the story so well, so I'm going to paraphrase it. So apologies in advance. My father may remember the story better than I do. But in response to children being an impediment in your devotional service, I remember there was a Prabhupada disciple who had written to him about difficulties they were facing when they had their child, and how it was distracting them from their service to their deities, how they couldn't find time to do service and things. And basically, Prabhupada told them that your child is your deity. And raising them as devotees is very important. And as long as they are raised to be devotees and the whole time spent is expected.
Thank you. Yes, if you bring a devotee to the world, it's your obligation to take care of it. It's not like just part of a thing like going shopping or something like that. This is a being that you are becoming responsible for, physically, emotionally, spiritually, etc., etc. So yeah, has to become a very important part of your service. But on the other hand, you can't neglect the other parts of the service that are that one made vows about. And this is common. And Taraka Prabhu explained quite well about how offenses will mess up one's life to the point that one loses taste, which is determination goes out the window. All right, I think we have come to the end of another Bhagavatam class. It is 8:03. Deities are visible, as you can see. Are there any more points that anyone would like to present? Any comments or any questions?
Thanks, Prabhu, for the enlivening discussion and facilitating. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. You were a very important part of it. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Gaura Preman.